When a general partner receives carried interest on early successful exits, the fund's overall economics remain uncertain until the final portfolio company is sold. Clawback provisions exist to reconcile this timing mismatch, ensuring the GP returns any excess distributions if later investments underperform. For finance teams tracking these obligations across a decade-long fund life, the calculation mechanics require persistent vigilance and precise documentation. What triggers a clawback obligation? Clawback provisions typically apply two tests at fund termination. Preferred return test verifies that each limited partner has received cumulative distributions equal to contributed capital, plus the agreed preferred return, often 8% compounded annually. Profit share test confirms the GP has not received more than 20% or the contractually agreed percentage of cumulative net profits. If either test reveals an overpayment, the GP must return the excess to the fund for redistribution to limited partners. How does waterfall structure affect clawback risk? The distribution waterfall fundamentally shapes clawback exposure. European style, whole of fund, waterfalls distribute carry only after LPs have received all contributed capital plus their preferred return, resulting in lower clawback risk since the GP's entitlement is clearer at the time of distribution. American style, deal by deal, waterfalls allow carried distributions after each realized investment, well before aggregate fund performance is known, creating materially higher clawback risk. Under a deal-by-deal structure, the GP often receives carry years before the fund's aggregate performance is known. A $500 million fund might distribute $8 million in carry after exiting its first successful portfolio company in year 3, only to face write-downs on remaining investments by year 8, triggering a potential clawback at fund termination. What does the calculation actually look like? Consider a simplified example. A fund with $100 in LP capital contributions makes investments across 5 portfolio companies. By year 6, 3 exits have occurred, generating $40 million in carry distributions to the GP. However, the remaining 2 investments are ultimately written off. The final clawback calculation aggregates total LP capital contributions, 100 million, total distributions to LPs, 120 million total GP carry received, 40 million preferred return owed, 8% over fund life. 80 million, running the preferred return test reveals LPs should have received $180 million, $100 million capital plus $80 million preferred return before any carry was paid. Since they received only $120 million, the GP owes the shortfall, potentially the full $40 million in previously distributed carry. How do interim clawback tests work? Many LPAs now include interim clawback provisions that test for potential obligations at defined intervals, commonly at the end of the commitment period and periodically thereafter. These calculations treat unrealized investments at fair market value as if the portfolio were hypothetically liquidated on the measurement date. Finance teams typically run these calculations quarterly or semi-annually, even when formal testing is only required annually. This cadence allows early identification of potential obligations and informs decisions about future carry distributions. What protections exist against clawback risk? Standard mechanisms include escrow accounts. LPA guidelines suggest holding 30% or more of carry distributions in escrow until fund termination holdbacks, internal GP policies that defer a portion of distributions to individual carry recipients, personal guarantees. Some LPAs require carry recipients to guarantee repayment, though this is less common when escrows are in place. Tax gross-up caps, limiting clawback obligations to after-tax amounts, typically 70% of distributed carry. What makes tracking so complex over 10 years? Several factors compound the administrative burden. LP by LP calculations. When investors are excused from certain investments or commit at different closes, clawback obligations must be calculated separately for each LP. Vesting and departures. When carry recipients leave mid-fund, tracking individual exposure requires maintaining historical allocation records. Currency and timing. Multi-currency funds must determine exchange rates for contributions, and distributions spanning years. Fund administrators and controllers often maintain dedicated waterfall models that capture every capital call, distribution, and valuation adjustment, a continuous reconciliation exercise from first close through final liquidation. The calculation is straightforward in concept but demanding in execution, requiring accurate records and ongoing scenario analysis across the full fund lifecycle.